All right. Welcome back to a surprise protagonist swap involving Bayonetta because I had high hopes for God of War, and those high hopes fell off a fucking cliff. So, he's
Sorry,
yours.
my little thing's being weird. Just keep talking.
All right, that's fine. So, similar to how Kratos appeared in the DMC verse outside of novels, we're kind of trying to put them through the games from the starting position. So we're bringing Bayonetta into God of War Ascension. Now you're probably thinking, why Bayonetta?
Well,
Well, go ahead, England.
I was gonna say most of the protagonist swap specifically features hack and slash characters for now. So we're mainly thinking at the moment we're doing three of the major hack and slashes, which is Devil May Cry, Bayonetta, and God of War. And for this scenario, we're simply having that, I guess, each one of the characters was given the opportunity to visit a verse. But to make things really funny, they're all given like a couple doors to decide which one they want to go to, and they chose one and ended up being sent to the wrong verse. So I guess Kratos wanted to go to the Devil May Cry verse, or he wanted to go to Bayonetta's verse, and he ended up in DMC. And Bayo wanted to go to DMC, and she ended up in God of War by mistake. So that is the situation.
Dante is currently being held captive in transit because he unfortunately brought a water bottle with him through the metal detector.
Yeah, and his internet connection isn't very good, so they're having hard time loading him into the the Bayo world. Bayo is also a Nintendo exclusive, so Nintendo's Wi-Fi is garbage. So it's going to be a very long time before he gets to make it in there. Sorry. Sorry for people who are wondering that. It's gonna be some time before we can load up that scenario.
It's fucking like VHS load up. Anyway, so yeah, we decided to. So thankfully, especially with recent evidence found, if you've been on the live streams, it's not too hard anymore to argue for Bayonetta being at like tier two, which was a problem that Kratos possesses, depending on who you ask and how you scale, especially Greek Kratos.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have to worry about that problem. So we're not going to be using Bayonetta's key from versus Battle Wiki for the most part, mainly because I vehemently disagree with that speed tiering with every
As do I.
fiber of my being. But so should be pretty straightforward, right? Go in the God of War. They're tier two. This should be no problem. So if it's Ascension, I've heard good things about Ascension scaling. So the first thing I did was I talked to obviously one of my resident God of War experts here. His name's Mangler, he's right there.
Mm-hmm.
About who they scale to. Mangler didn't seem convinced they scaled very high, so I'm like, well, just go on VSB and use their scale lead. And then VSB is like, yeah, they're not even like tier three. They're not even tier four. They're tier seven.
Well, yeah. It's also the problem that VSB doesn't even consistently accept the gods being 2C. They refer to them as a possibly. It's not even something definitive. It's something that's kind of like out there. And
Yes.
they're assuming there were no retcons made at all. Like, at all. So we're giving them the benefit of the doubt, and they're not even 100% certain of that.
Yeah, so when I did give Kratos the tier two of VSB, apparently I thought that was definitive tier two, but I guess it's not. Even Norse Kratos isn't definitive tier two over there, which is kind of weird.
Essentially, the problem here in this scenario is that, like, you don't. The Furies exist kind of in their own, like, local game because they're on their own island for most of the game. Yeah, they are stalking Kratos in the various towns that he's in, but they don't interact with any other deities or any of the like characters that would scale to that, which really is only the gods, the primordials, and the titans. Kratos does scale to it when he gets to like his god versions and versions that are near that and surpass that. Like basically everything from Ghost to Sparta onwards does. Or I guess the end of God of War 1 if you want to be like super specific about it. But Ascension would not scale.
Yes.
Ascension doesn't scale to that in the slightest and doesn't have the feats of that. And the
So
Fury's only feats are trying not to kill that Kratos the entire game to basically goad him into being Ares' slave again. So really the only argument you could use is saying that They scale to Olympus because Ares wanted to include them in their invasion. But then you get into the problem that Ares is like the fourth strongest god and wouldn't need them for most of the manpower because he'd mainly be struggling against most of the god tiers. And it wasn't even within like Kratos was molded to become the perfect warrior, but he was going to become the perfect warrior over time. He would have become more powerful over time, as we see, and Ares could have granted him more powers and abilities. It's also just like the fact that the Furies' most successful, useful role would have been as a support unit because basically nobody in the verse is actually resistant to their abilities. So
with
yeah.
with that whole spiel out of the way, again, if you want Mangler's credentials, he has like 2 hour videos, I think, going over God of War scaling.
Two 2-hour videos and about 100 hours, and not 100 total hours of playing God of War, mind you. 100 hours crammed into like, I want to say 5 to 6 weeks or something insane. Like the entire God of War games, all of their novels and their guidebooks crammed into my brain over the course of 2 months. So I kind of speed running the whole thing.
The boy knows his stuff is the point. So when we did the Kratos video, we had to give a lot of concessions in favor of Kratos in order to even give him a chance in the DMC verse against the hacks and stuff. Thankfully, that's not a problem this time around with Bayonetta. However, the one concession we will be giving Bayonetta is, if I recall correctly, even on VSB, they do give them infinite speed for the Furies.
Yeah.
So
incorrectly, but yeah, they do give it to them. I also want to state for the record, I am against the idea of using Kratos's, like, I'd rather use just the pre-retcon scaling just get them to...
Nope. Apparently I was wrong. The Furies actually only get likely FTL combat speed, so we don't even have to like change our speed for this.
Yeah, one. I was going to say that usually you would only scale them to like FTL plus.
And Bayo already has at least good.
I was going to say, and then infinite for basically most of the god tiers if you're using pre-retcon. So
what I was going to say, but I guess it might not be needed for this one at all, because like the only person there is like one time manipulator, but that's not going to be a problem. Is for the most part the only concession we would have to have given Bayo is inaccessible speed. Again, there are whatever. There are arguments in that favor, but we don't really feel like explaining them, so we would just concession anyway.
I can. It's just like, it's just simply easier to just say we're providing a concession because we did the same thing for Kratos. Yes. It wouldn't be difficult at all to explain why she'd have infinite speed arguments. BSB fucking gives her immeasurable for the dumbest goddamn reason.
So, and if we were to be like exactly as consistent, she would still be immeasurable, speed blitzing the entire verse until maybe 4, but then there's like, whatever. Point is, at least for this game, it's fine. We can just go through it. We're also going to be skipping all the flashbacks, which unfortunately cut down.
Let me explain this part because Zim hasn't actually played the game. So Kratos has a bit of a problem in the context of the story for like level select purposes because he's not consistently in one location throughout the game because he's experiencing in several flashbacks while he's held in the prison. But Bayo in this scenario is just being dropped in by a third party showing up in the prison, and the Furies are obviously just pissed at an intruder, and they see that she's powerful once she starts killing various like Greek enemies, so they want to like abduct her and then put her into the army by force, and they just end up trying to do the same thing to her that they did to Kratos, except it's just Bayo instead of Kratos, because they're like, oh yeah, this person would be useful to Lord Ares. So the reason why this matters, because you may be like, well, how is that relevant? Well, many of the levels don't take place in the asylum because the Furies bring you there after you go to like the island of Apollo. So technically speaking, even though there's 30 levels in Ascension that you can go through that are listed, only 8 of them actually take place in the prison. So she's technically going through less than a third of the levels, but she doesn't really have a reason to be there in the first scenario since the only reason Kratos is there is for story like given reasons, but like we're not like writing a story scenario, say we're just swapping their positions and creating like a brief summary of how they got in there. And we're not writing out like a written story scenario, if that makes sense.
This entire explanation has already taken 10 minutes. It's probably going to take like, that's already like half the video, I bet.
That's because you took too long trying to explain this next part. It wasn't that hard. Okay, so
it has to be clear, Mangler.
So
I have to pad
with that, the scenario begins. So she starts in the prison of the damned,
Yes.
and most of the enemies she's fighting are just like the little, just like various basic enemies.
She's literally gonna like mow through these enemies like going through like a lawn.
Yeah, they're just like basic prisoners and people that have been infected by the various like fury, the little fury like bug things that came out.
They have those like weird fucking leeches or whatever. Those weird like fucking like I think they're just leeches, right?
I'm trying to remember exactly. Like
fuck it, they're possessed. We're fighting the Last of Us apparently. Moving on.
Yeah, she just goes through that for a little bit until she runs into one of the Furies and fights her directly. So this Furies only like again, and we're kind of like accepting either VSB's key or like not VSB's key, which I would just scale them slightly higher. We're talking about characters that don't have infinite speed.
Don't even have tier 2 or tier 3 scaling apparently.
And they're going to fight Bayo, who has summons that you can arguably argue into Uni Plus or 2C.
It just occurred to me, she's gonna one shot these things. So do we just do we just change the story a little bit to facilitate the fact that she kills them in each encounter?
Well, to be fair, Kratos technically kills them quite quickly, and he's not even at 2C. So it technically the scenario just takes a little bit less time. Well, okay, it might actually take way less time than that because she also speed blitzes them to the moon and back.
So, so the Hecatoncles fight happens in the first level, right?
It happens over the course incrementally of over several levels because multiple portions of the Hecatoncles gets infected.
So do we just skip that because she shoots the Hecatoncles once and like its entire body just?
No, I mean, yeah, she goes through it really quickly. Well, there's also the thing that, like, I guess Bayo would just be normally traversing the prison, though she could basically move wherever she wanted because she has Crow within, the Bats within, Panther within.
She has mobility, yes.
Yeah, she has mobility, insane aerial capabilities. She has, like, Malphus's wings, so she can fly, defy the laws of physics, transform into multiple different flying animals, double jump, collide. She can do literally anything she needs to do to maneuver the prison in any. So technically, she can break the level design of the scenario by just going wherever she wants to in the prison. And there's not really a damn thing that anybody can do to stop her because, again, if we're counting the Irenics, like the Irenics, just for context of how, if anyone is curious, like how fast like Bayo is, she can react to the Irenics, who, based on their statements, can cross Paradiso, which is stated to be thousands of times larger than the human world, and in like a day. Yeah. And she can react to these things at a basic level casually. Just being able to react to something that crosses the universe is like in like a day is already reaching into like the billions, hundreds of billions of times the speed of light. This is like thousands of times larger than that, bare men. And that's also a casual Bayo, so she'd be several times stronger than that. And the Bayo that did that feat was like halfway through the game of Bayo 1, when she didn't have most of her powers awakened and she wasn't in serious mode or Unreal Climax.
So she clears the prison, kills the Fury in the prison that dies. I'm assuming there's one that dies. I think there's one that dies in the prison.
Yeah, and then, well, so three of them die in the prison. So after she goes through...
well, wait, are you telling me she could just kill all 3 Furies in the prison?
Yeah, so the problem is that the Furies are only useful in the context of like the narrative in the story because they're trying to basically like their powers are specifically meant for like capture and are
Yes.
specifically meant for things
Do
like
would they?
confusion.
So is there? I don't remember if this cutscene occurs in the prison at the beginning or later on because again, like there's so many flashbacks. Is it in the prison at some point? All three of them show up to mock like Kratos because we could just say at that point she could just kill them all.
Um, no,
Okay.
not there are several of them, like Electo, which is the Queen of the Furies, and I believe her sister. I'm trying to remember which one it is. Um, they show up together to like mock her. Let me show. Let me check the ones because I'm trying to remember the names of some of them. It's been a while. Ascension was the first one I had to play instead of the last one.
We can just say that Kratos that or that Bayonetta that kills them there. Like, it just occurred to me that these people will come and talk to her, and then like again, Bayonetta just like shoot like sneezes in their direction, they blow up instantly.
Yeah, they don't even list the names for the Furies.
Okay, so she kills the
Oh wait,
Fury.
no, never mind. Tisiphone and Megara. Yeah, so I don't remember which one is which.
Does not really
After,
matter, does it?
yeah, it doesn't really matter. So one of the Furies win conditions is just illusions, which I know someone's going to bring up. That's not going to matter because again, they don't affect and alter your mind. They specifically just affect the environment, and whenever Kratos specifically knocks her out of it, it completely changes the environment back to what it is. Even though, again, some of these illusions seem to be extremely powerful as far as like causing like tsunamis and like storms. They don't change the actual environment. They're just fake. They're completely and totally fake. They don't become reality. So if Bayo attacks or kills the Fury that's causing this, preferably before she even casts it, which she could do, or even after she casts it, it will just go back to normal.
Yeah, so
So,
it just seems like the first Fury, so the first Fury fight clears any of the bosses in the prison for the most part. Next,
um,
I think is the Oracle, if I'm not mistaken.
no, that's also on the island.
What the fuck?
Yeah, so the Oracle fight also happens with the twins. Also happens on the island. We could throw that in there for a bonus round if people want to see how that one's. Spoiler alert: that doesn't work out either.
Even if we
Um,
didn't have like the massive light speed difference, it still
well,
doesn't work out.
so I know some people have used that to argue that those characters are breaking the speed formula because they're using the Amulet of Ouroboros to jump through time. That's never stated, indicated, or shown, and it's actually contradicted by the fact that when they do the teleport, they don't attack through it. They don't like teleport slash with it. They move and then they attack afterwards. But if you wanted to use that, Bayo's descriptions for how she uses witch time actually confirms that she uses the flow of time directly. It's confirmed in the Japanese description. You can check this. VSB has this on her profile that in order to access, it sort of says this in the English version, but it clarifies it more in the Japanese version. That the techniques known as light speed and witch time that are used by the Umbran witches and the Lumen sages are specifically known as temporal control, and that they control and affect time when they use them. It's just the way that the techniques are practiced is different between the Umbran witches and the Lumen sages. The Lumen sages use it to slow down and stop time. The Umbran witches use it to amp their speed using the flow of time. And I don't know if I need to explain to you what literally using the flow of time does to your actual speed.
Let's leave that be for now. That's why we tried to skip the inaccessible thing at the start.
Because that is an actual time buffing speed argument, unlike the Amulet of
Okay,
Ouroboros.
so what comes first, the Fury boss fight or the Amulet of Ouroboros boss fight?
That happens certainly before. You
Okay.
do scrap with the Furies a couple times, even in the prison, and they escape multiple times, but you mainly kill the last two remaining ones in the Electos chamber. So
Okay, so she kills the fucking she kills fucking the Amulet of Ouroboros. Doesn't use it because she has no reason to use it whatsoever. Doesn't take the eyes either because she has no real reason to use it.
because she can just jump through the level and fly.
The Oracle literally dies for nothing. She holds the Oracle's hand as she dies and does nothing with her eyes.
Yeah.
So we go forward. How many more how many missions are left before we get to the final boss fight?
Well, if you're going by the flashbacks, the amulet mission, I believe, happens only a little bit of ways before. Yeah, so it's Delphi's. Oh
Uh,
wait, no, the Oracle's chamber does happen at the 12, so that's like way further back, but it doesn't really matter. Again, like none of this really matters. Like the only enemies that you could argue that might like actually there are no enemies that could cause like a problem for her because your best enemies are the twins using time manipulation, which wouldn't work on her, and the time manipulation they're using isn't really good. It's massively green and massively telegraphed. You have maybe the race spirits. You wanted to argue she wouldn't interact with them, except for the fact that she has weapons that literally hold people's souls and can hit souls. She has demons that can knock people's souls out of their physical body. She can see souls. She can interact with abstract entities. Most of the angels and the demons in Bayonetta, fun fact, they're actually created from the will of humanity's thoughts and their subconscious. So they're actually like a higher degree and capacity of an abstraction than just your regular soul. Like you wouldn't be able to interact with them if you had soul manipulation specifically, because most of them are just like emotions and thoughts given form. So
okay,
technically, some of them are even stated to just be like concepts. So
so so she goes through. There's nothing really that can stop her because she literally beats everything in God of War, or at least in Ascension at this point, with minimal effort. And there's no platforming issue that she'll come across because she's the most mobile thing God of War has ever seen. Besides maybe Hermes, and even then, that's debatable.
there's also the fact that any attack that she has, if we're going by her arsenal in 1 or 2, can put down any character. So if we give her her arsenal from 1, which I know some people might be like, well, how would that do? So she has bazillions, which allows her to basically escape any BFR or any dimension that she wants. They have they're enhanced with demonic power, so any character that has like weaknesses to demonic abilities in God of War just gets soloed by this, and they can itemize you instantly, and they're instant like room crossing lasers that can instantly close the gap of a range of like dozens of meters, and they itemize you on contact. So she could just kill you like that. She could suck out your soul with Shiraba. She could. Oh yeah, she could stab you with Chernabog, and like not only would reap your soul, she'd BFR you to Bayonetta's Inferno, where you'd be trapped there to be tortured by demons for eternity.
Okay,
Um,
okay. We don't need to keep going with the arsenals. I think we've
oh
all.
wait, hang on, I got one more. So Kefka, because I know that the God of War verse has several different poisons that the characters are affected by. She also has access to her own versions of poison manipulation, except many of them are just venomous beetles and things made from demons. And these beetles can actually traverse through the air extremely fast. They have lock on, they're omnidirectional, and they can move her in the air. So every time she fires these, she repositions herself. So
wait,
you'll
wait,
never be able to catch her lacking when
wait,
she moves,
wait. Hang on.
and they'll always find you.
You said omnidirectional. So if I fire shots forward, do they just immediately turn around and curve back to
They can literally do a full 180, and she can also extend the bow to fire in more than one direction, and like 7 to 8 shots at a time,
I
completely
have
separate from climax mode.
I have not actually seen gameplay for the bow, so that is actually a
Yeah.
surprise to me.
And
Okay,
then, well, I was
hey,
gonna say that's probably enough, but
I'll say I think this horse isn't this. We didn't beat this dead horse. We've itemized this dead horse at this point.
she also has guns, and
He's still going.
the God of War verse doesn't know what a gun is, so
Now,
they're
actually, hang
probably
on, hang on. That's not entirely true. Ares
no.
was able to see World War II.
Again, they don't really know what a gun is.
Oh
Ares,
wow.
at best, you could argue that for characters that can specifically see conflicts like that, they'd be able to see it. But like, we would no evidence that he's able to contextualize what happens because when Kratos sees that information, he has no fucking clue what's going on. He literally describes the planes during World War II as like metal birds. So he's describing to the best of his understanding, but he needs to correct
Oh
himself
wait, that's
later.
right. It's in the novel, right? Like there's actually description.
Yeah,
Yeah, I forgot about
yeah.
that.
He corrects himself later by saying no, it's a machine, but that clearly shows that at a first glance, which is all these guys are gonna fucking get. Uh, he has no idea what it is.
Okay. So Bayonetta casually strolls through, kills everything in her path, and then kills the final boss with little to no issues. Because even if the illusions affect her, which I don't think we have evidence against at the moment, I don't recall illusions affecting her in the main
Well,
game, but I don't have any.
so the problem with the illusions affecting her is that it wouldn't matter
Yeah,
because they only affect the environment around you, and the
yeah.
reason why that was a problem. So the reason why that's a problem for Kratos and characters in God of War is, again, like, I need to point this out. Most of these people are Greeks. Okay, so they're like ancient
Well,
Greek
that is a meme.
civilians. Okay, so they're ancient Greek civilians that don't really have an understanding of the world or the universe around them. So having all of their reality manipulated like that to be perceived differently, especially when one of them, Kratos, is going insane from the fact that he
I
killed his
feel like we've
family.
spent more time discussing why this shit works on Kratos and not other people
I
than we
know,
have actually going through
because he's going insane.
it.
So often you could argue that if he's even going mad, you wouldn't even need to add the illusions to it, because even if his perception of reality isn't changing, his attitude towards it and his like his him breaking into like sweats, having like nightmares, like that's a thing that constantly happens to him irrespective of the Furies. They're just able to work on him because he's already kind of a broken mess. He's like teetering on the edge of madness.
Okay,
Well,
so
you could argue, yeah, she could manipulate areas around him. Well, I've already said this before, but like speed kind of invalidates that. Bayo
yeah.
also has massive AoE range. So,
Keep in mind, like every like potential thing they can do, they'd have to sneak up on her, and that's assuming you can sneak up on her, and that's also not even bringing up the fact that in worst case scenario, we could just argue she moves to Purgatorio, and the
oh yeah,
illusions probably wouldn't
I
even
didn't even
follow.
mention Purgatorio. So she could just jump into another dimension and they will never be able to see her again.
There's also the fact that the illusions probably wouldn't even work when she enters Purgatorio, since again they don't actually change reality; they just kind of impose a reality on an individual. If that makes
They
sense.
impose a perception of reality on an individual, which, again, that wouldn't even work. Even if it changed reality, that wouldn't be applicable to another dimension. It's literally referred to as the realm between realms. The only times where you can see or interact with them is with specific materials,
Or if
or
you can just
usually,
interact with the realm.
no, you either need to see them, like either they need to interact with you, you need to have like the power to interact with them in some capacity, or you need to be able to see them through mirrors. But they can just destroy the mirror. And every Umbran witch in Lumen Sage also knows all of these details and information because they've been trained and studied in the arts of like the various realms and how they work. So Bayo, if she didn't want to be seen, would just destroy the mirror.
Yeah,
So
so there's really not much.
assuming there even is one.
So just to be clear, we will be giving the tier two for the other God of War characters who would actually scale to going forward. I
Yes.
heard some things about Ascension that could have made it scale higher, which is why I like thought let's do Ascension first since it's the first in the timeline. Apparently, not even versus Battle Wiki agrees with some of the arguments I've heard because I was told that like the Hecatoncheires scales to Atlas, but apparently that doesn't seem to at least
Well,
that
the
does.
Hecatoncheires is basically like a bondage victim in this prison and hasn't been able to move its body or do anything for an extremely long length of time. Is now
Well,
corrupted by the Furies.
so he did fight though, like in the war though, right?
No, he
Well,
fucked off immediately. So
what?
yeah, so it's revealed. The statement, people get that statement from uh, Ariel Lawrence, I believe. Though I haven't been able to verify the original tweet that it was mentioned from. The problem is that the game identifies that when he agrees to fight for the gods, he breaks his oath, and then Zeus sends the Furies after them to punish him. So he agrees to fight
And then
and
runs
then
away.
leaves. Yeah, he doesn't
Oh,
participate in the battle.
well then, Well, yeah, okay. I think we're done here.
Even okay, so even if he was, and we argue he's like the Uni plus the 2C, because again, we'd be using VSBs,
Yeah.
possibly key, so they don't even accept it. All of Bayo's summon skill to that, and arguably higher. I would argue higher within 2C, and all of her hacks still apply.
I mean, like,
So,
even if it was low 2C, like, no, like, she has more mobility than a fucking walking corpse. And even if we assume the
dude,
Fury scale low 2C, she still speed blitzes them.
I would unironically argue, probably debate, that Bayo has more movement options than fucking Dante in DMC2. Or,
Blasphemy.
or in Bayo
Blasphemy.
2. Yeah, so like, guard
You
flank
dare
Medea.
stand before the council blaspheming
I,
like
I, I
this?
will. I will after playing this game. Absolutely.
Wow. So then, like, what? Okay, let's try not to get too off topic here. All right. So at any rate, even if we were to like give the benefit of the doubt and give the characters who could actually be argued for loosely having the scaling, they don't really fuck with Bayonetta because of her extra abilities like entering Purgatorio, her mobility is insane, Bats Within, negates apparently damage and shit. Her weaponry would fucking murder all of them.
Her accessories also allow her to nullify damage, and technically she has an accessory that allows her to steal hidden items,
Why aren't you stopping?
which deletes like passive abilities.
Okay, so yeah, basically, even if we give the benefit of the doubt for the scaling chain, unfortunately, Bayonetta's a little too much for the enemies here in general. And yes, if we were to give them infinite speed, like, to give them the higher scaling, we would give that to Bayonetta as well, just to like even
And
it
even
out.
if we didn't, Witch Time still boosts her speed using the literal flow of time.
Why do you do
So,
this?
so
Well, yeah, so with that said, since this video was done so fast, I'll try and get at least another protagonist swap below 4 along the way. Somehow it was more interesting trying to drag Kratos through it than just watching someone steamroll a verse. Which, again, like when I first came into this, I wasn't expecting this to be such massive of a stomp. I thought there was actually going to be like some decent scaling going on.
mm-hmm.
But so yeah, no. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for your time as always. Have a nice day, and we'll see you guys in the next protagonist swap video, and I'll see you guys on the next streamer video. Take care, everybody.